My sister found out she was adopted during a party. Now she says I've always known, and helped hide it. I'm a 32-year-old man, and 2 weeks ago, my younger sister shattered a wine glass, and screamed that I'd ruined her life, in front of 30 people at our cousin's engagement party. It started with a toast. Our cousin Sophie had just announced she was pregnant, and everyone was gathered in the backyard under fairy lights and heat lamps. There was champagne, laughter, that cozy kind of buzz that families get when no one's fighting for once. Then Sophie's fiancé, Hugo, raised a glass and said something like, "I'm so lucky to be marrying into this beautiful, genetically gifted family." Everyone laughed. It was dumb and harmless. But my sister, Julie, laughed too hard. And then she said, "Right? Genetically gifted. Except me." People chuckled, thinking she was joking. But I knew her face. And the way she looked at me, it was sharp, loaded. Sophie made a joke back. Something like, "Don't be silly, Jules. You're the prettiest one here." And then Julie said, with a half smile, "Not bad for someone who's not even related." The entire backyard went silent, like someone had just cut the music. My mother's glass clinked against the patio. My dad choked on his drink. Sophie blinked. "What do you mean?" someone asked. And Julie turned to me and said, "Tell them." "Go ahead. You're so good at pretending." I couldn't speak, because I didn't know she knew. And certainly not like this. That's when she lost it. She grabbed her wine glass, threw it to the ground, and screamed, "I'm adopted. They lied to me my whole life." And he helped. She pointed at me. Everyone turned to stare. I couldn't move. My mom started crying. My dad tried to pull Julie inside. She yanked her arm away and stormed off into the dark part of the yard. People started murmuring. Someone tried to lighten the mood. No one laughed. The rest of the night was a blur. Apologies. People awkwardly leaving. Sophie trying not to cry. My mother completely breaking down. My dad asking me, "Did you tell her?" with pure panic in his eyes. I said no, because I didn't. But now I wish I had. Because the truth is, I did know. And I've known for 15 years. I was 17 when I overheard my parents arguing. I'd come home from a friend's house earlier than expected. They were in the kitchen. My mom was crying, saying, "We should be told her years ago." My dad said, "We agreed we'd wait." It doesn't change anything. I remember standing there frozen, hearing the words, "Not biologically ours," and, "The woman who gave birth to her." I ran back out of the house before they noticed me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor in my room, staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd heard. Julie was only 10 then. Just a kid. My kid sister, who used to follow me around, and ask dumb questions and steal my socks. I couldn't look at her the same way for weeks. Eventually, I convinced myself it wasn't my business, that my parents would tell her when the time was right. But the years passed, and they never did. And I stayed silent, because I didn't want to cause chaos, because it felt like their lie, not mine. Now, it's blown up in my face. Julie hasn't spoken to me since the party. She moved out of our parents' house the next day, told them she needed space. She told me, in a single text, "You knew. I saw it on your face. You're just as fake as them." I tried to call. She blocked my number. And here's the part that's killing me. She's right. She saw the guilt on my face. And I was part of the lie, even if I didn't mean to be. I've spent every day since that night asking myself what I should be done. When I should be told her. How I could have softened the blow. How I didn't. And now she thinks her entire life has been a performance, and that I, her big brother, her so-called protector, was one of the actors. I don't know how to fix this, and I don't know if I even deserve to. 2 days after the party, I drove to her apartment. I didn't text, didn't call, I just showed up and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. I stood in the hallway like an idiot for 15 minutes before giving up. Just as I was turning to leave, the door across the hall opened. An older woman stepped out, arms crossed, eyes cautious. "You looking for Julie?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm her brother." Her eyes narrowed. "I don't think she wants visitors. She's been crying for days. Barely leaves." Doorbell rings. She flinches. "You part of that family mess?" I didn't know how to answer. She didn't deserve to find out like that. The woman added, "No one does." I nodded. "I know." She closed the door without saying goodbye. I left a note under Julie's door. "Please talk to me. I'm sorry. I should be done better." And then I went home, where my parents were still living like ghosts. My mom was in the kitchen, moving cups from one cabinet to another for no reason. My dad was in the den, watching a muted TV. I sat down at the table and asked the question I'd been choking on for a week. "Why didn't you tell her?" My mom didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because we were afraid. Afraid she'd hate us. That it would change everything." I looked at her. "And it didn't occur to you that lying to her for her entire life might do the exact same thing?" She sat down slowly. Her eyes were rimmed red. When we adopted Julie, we swore we'd tell her before she turned 18. But then she got sick that year, remember, with the seizures. And the doctors ran tests and scared us to death. We were so focused on keeping her healthy, we pushed everything else aside. So you just never found the moment. We always thought, next month, next summer, after high school, after college. And then it felt too late. She was happy. She loved us. We didn't want to ruin it. Until Sophie made a stupid joke about genetics. And it all fell apart. My dad said from the doorway. He looked older than I remembered. Shoulders sagged, voice hoarse. I didn't think she'd find out like that, he added. She didn't find out, I said. You hid it for 24 years. And you expected it to stay buried. I stood up, pushed the chair back too hard. You both put me in an impossible position. My mom looked up. You knew. I overheard you. When I was 17, she covered her mouth. My dad sat down like someone had punched him. You Sholvi told us, he said. And what would you have done? Still not told her. Still waited. He didn't answer. I went back to my place and stared at my phone for hours. I had nothing new from her. Nothing at all. The silence was starting to feel permanent. The next morning, I drove to her work, a little bookstore she managed near the university. She wasn't there. Her coworker, Lena, recognized me and pulled me aside. She took leave, Lena said. Said she needed time. Family stuff. She looked broken. Do you know where she went? No. She left in an Uber with a suitcase and said she'd be gone for a while. Gone. Just like that. I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, trying not to cry. I kept thinking about our childhood. About how I used to chase her around the yard. How she once gave me a handmade coupon for 100 hugs on my birthday. How she called me at 3 a.m. when her first boyfriend broke her heart, and I showed up with fries and chocolate milk. And how now she thinks I'm a liar. Because I am. I lied by omission, by cowardice, by pretending it wasn't my responsibility. A week passed, then 10 days. My mom tried texting her. Nothing. My dad wrote an email that he read out loud to me first. It ended with, "We still love you more than anything. Please come home." She didn't reply. Then, one night, I got a message. Not from her. From an unknown number. It was a photo of Julie, standing on a cliff near the ocean, wrapped in a scarf, wind in her hair. No caption, no name. But it was her. Alive. Alone. Somewhere far. And below it, she's safe. She just needs space. That was it. I saved the photo, and I stared at it for hours, wondering if she'd ever come back. And if she did, would she still be my sister? I stared at that photo for hours. Not because I didn't believe it was real. Julie always loved the ocean. Growing up, she'd tape postcards of cliffs and crashing waves to her bedroom walls. She used to tell me, "I feel like I was born near water." I always thought it was a weird thing to say. Now I think maybe she knew. Somewhere deep inside her. Like her body remembered something the rest of us kept hidden. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't even know who sent it. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was a stranger. But the fact that someone, somewhere, thought enough to let me know she was alive, that gave me something. Not peace, but oxygen. 3 days later, I went to our childhood home again. My parents looked like they hadn't slept. My mom was still drinking tea like it was medicine. My dad kept asking if I'd heard anything. I told them about the photo, about the message. My mom cried again. My dad just nodded, as if hearing she was alive didn't help anymore. "I don't know if she's coming back," I said. "We just want to talk to her," my mom whispered. Just once. I didn't say what we were all thinking, that they'd had 2 decades to talk to her. And now that chance might be gone. That night, I opened my laptop and wrote Julie an email. Not to her old address. I figured she wouldn't be checking that. But to the mail I found once when she used my laptop and forgot to log out. It might be been years old, maybe even deactivated. I wrote it anyway. "Julie, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if this email still works. But I need to say something that I didn't have the courage to say when you needed it most. I knew. Not everything. Not the details. But I overheard Mom and Dad years ago. I was 17. And I froze. I didn't know what to do. I told myself it wasn't my secret to tell. That they'd do it eventually. That I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was protecting me. Because I was scared. Because I didn't want to be the one to break your heart. And I did anyway. I'm sorry. I know those 2 words aren't enough. I can't take back the lie or the silence. But I love you." I never stopped. "You are my sister in every way that matters. If you ever want to talk about anything, I'll be here. No questions. No pressure. Alex." I hovered over the send button for a full 5 minutes before clicking it. Then I closed the laptop and didn't open it again for 2 days. When I did, there was no reply. But the message hadn't bounced back. So maybe she saw it. I went to her old apartment. A few days later, the neighbor, The same woman who'd looked at me like I was part of the wreckage opened the door again. She came back, she said, for one night. Picked up a few things. Didn't talk much. Did she say anything about me? She shook her head. Only that she wasn't sure who she was angry at anymore. That hit me harder than if she'd said she hated me, because it meant she was lost. And I helped lose her. I walked into her empty apartment that day. The landlord let me in for 10 minutes. I stood in her living room, still smelling faintly like her lavender spray. Her bookshelf was empty, her mugs gone, but her corkboard was still up, pinned with little post-its. One stood out in her handwriting. It read, "I don't know who I was supposed to be, but it wasn't this." I took a photo of it. That's all I allowed myself. When I left, I called my mom, told her everything. The board, the note, the email I'd sent. She cried again. Then she asked me something I hadn't expected. "Do you think she'll ever forgive us?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know, and because forgiveness was never really the question. The real question was, would Julie ever come home and believe that any part of her life was still real? A week later, I got a reply. Not to the email I sent, not even to my number, but a handwritten letter, slipped into my mailbox in the middle of the day. No stamp, no name on the envelope, just my first name in her writing. I opened it standing in the hallway, key still in hand, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Inside were 4 pages, folded neatly. The first line read, "You don't get to pretend you were protecting me." I stood there, frozen, reading it like a confession and a sentencing at the same time. You don't get to say it was love. You don't get to tell yourself that silence was kindness, because every year that passed without the truth felt like a year where my life was being written by someone else. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I ever really knew. You say you overheard it, that you were 17, that you were scared. I was 10. I was trusting. I believed everything you ever said to me, that we were real, that nothing would ever come between us. But something did, and you let it stay between us for 15 years. I don't hate you, Alex. That's the worst part. I don't hate you. I wish I did. I wish I could burn it all down and say none of it mattered. But I loved you. I still do. And that love makes it worse. I've been staying at a friend's house by the coast. She doesn't ask questions. She leaves me space. Sometimes I walk the cliffs alone and wonder what version of me I was supposed to become if I'd known sooner, if I'd had any say in my own story. I looked up my birth certificate last week. What's real? What's legal? What's missing? There are blanks, Alex. Whole sections marked, undisclosed. How do you build a life on that? I keep thinking of this one night. Do you remember? I was 6. You were 11. I had a nightmare and came into your room crying. You let me sleep next to you, even though I kicked in my sleep. In the morning, you said, "No matter what, I'll always be your big brother." I clung to that memory the night I found out. I'm not writing this to reopen wounds. They never closed in the first place. I'm writing because if I don't, I'll drown in everything I never got to say. I don't know when I'll come back, or if I will, but I needed you to understand that silence was its own kind of violence, and you helped commit it. I sat on the floor after reading it, letter clutched in my hands, unable to breathe properly. It felt like someone had extracted my heart, placed it in front of me, and asked me to explain why it beat the way it did. And she was right. She was so painfully and deniably right. I had told myself for years that I was being noble, respecting my parents' decision, protecting her from something she wasn't ready for. But the truth was, I wasn't ready. I wasn't willing to be the one who shattered her image of the world. So I let her live in a lie, because it was easier for me. That night, I wrote her back. Another letter, pen on paper, no edits, no backspace. Julie, you're right, every word. I didn't protect you. I protected myself. I let fear dictate what kind of brother I was. And you paid the price for that. When I overheard Mom and Dad, I panicked. Not because I thought less of you, but because I suddenly saw how fragile everything was. How easy it was for truths to be buried. And I let them keep digging. I remember that night you mentioned. I remember your small hands gripping my shirt, and your breath on my shoulder. I remember thinking, I have to be strong for her. I failed that promise in every way that mattered. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I haven't earned it. I just want you to know this. No matter how you were born, no matter who signed what piece of paper, no one will ever take your place in my life. I'll be here as long as it takes. Whether you come home or never want to see us again, I won't stop loving you. And I won't stop being your brother, even if all I can do now is stand quietly at the edge and wait. I walked to her old apartment, slid the envelope under the door. Same hallway, same woman next door gave me the same look. This time, she didn't say anything. She just nodded, and I left. Letterless, hopeful, broken, but waiting. A week passed. No answer, no call, no new message. I tried not to check the mailbox more than once a day, Tried not to refresh my email like it could somehow summon her back into my life. I failed at both. Every day. Repeatedly. Then one morning, I stepped outside and found an envelope taped to my door. Same handwriting. No name. Inside, a single page. I've read your letter 5 times. I cried during the second one. I screamed after the third. I laughed at the fourth, not because it was funny, but because it was honest. I'm not okay yet. I don't know if I will be, but I believe you, and I believe that you still love me. I just don't know what to do with that love right now. Don't wait at the door. Let me knock when I'm ready. That was it. No update. No promise. But the fact that she wrote anything at all felt monumental. I sat on the porch for hours that day. Didn't even realize it until the light changed. Something about seeing her handwriting, her voice back on paper, made me feel less like a villain and more like a man just trying to clean up the wreckage he helped cause. I didn't write back. She said not to wait, so I didn't. Instead, I started therapy. My friend Mark recommended a guy he saw after his divorce. I was skeptical at first. What was I going to do? Cry about my sister to a stranger? But I went, and in the first 10 minutes, I cracked. Told the whole story, from the night I overheard my parents, to the shattered wine glass at the party, to the photo of her standing by the cliffs. The therapist, David, just nodded, said quietly, "You've been holding on to guilt so long you've mistaken it for loyalty." That line haunted me, because it was true. I'd been carrying this guilt like a badge, telling myself that silence had been a form of love, that complicity had been protection. But really, I'd just been scared of losing the person I loved most. And now I'd almost lost her anyway. David told me to stop writing letters I wasn't sending, but I didn't listen. Every night, I wrote to Julie, not to send them, just to understand myself better. I filled a notebook in 3 weeks. Memories, regrets, moments I wished I could relive, like the time she lost her first tooth and accused me of stealing it before the tooth fairy came, or the time she sat in the rain for 2 hours waiting outside my soccer practice because she didn't want me to feel alone. God, I didn't just lose a sister. I lost the version of her who believed I was the one person who'd never lie to her. And maybe that's the worst part. One night, mid-May, my parents invited me to dinner. I hesitated. I hadn't been in their house since the day I confronted them, but I went. Out of duty, out of curiosity, out of hope. The house was quieter than I remembered. We ate pasta none of us really touched. Then my mom cleared her throat and said, "We wrote her a letter." I looked up. 2, actually, my dad added. 1 from each of us. We asked her to meet us. Just once. No pressure. No explanation. Just to see her face. Did she respond? I asked. No, my mom whispered. But we had to try. I nodded, because I understood now that sometimes love wasn't enough. That sometimes love looked like silence. And sometimes it looked like writing a letter you knew might never be read. After dinner, I walked past Julie's old room. The door was closed, but through the crack, I saw something that made my chest tighten. On the shelf above her old desk sat a single photo, me and her, from a summer trip, when we were kids. She had ice cream on her face. I was grinning, arm around her shoulder. She'd left it there. Maybe on purpose. Maybe not. But it was there, still. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Hope. It was the first week of June, when I saw her again. Not in a dream. Not in a photo. In person. I was coming out of the grocery store, 2 bags in hand, headphones in, mind somewhere else, when I nearly bumped into her, by the automatic doors. She was standing there, hair tied up, hoodie, no makeup, no big emotional music playing behind her. Just Julie. My heart stopped. I actually froze mid-step. She looked at me. No shock. No drama. Just calm recognition. As if she'd been expecting me to appear. I took out my earbuds. "Hey," I said, voice caught in my throat. "Hey," she replied. We stood there for a beat too long. Then she said, "You buying frozen pizza again?" I laughed. "A real one. Sharp and short. You always said I had the diet of a teenager." Still true. Apparently. And just like that, we were in it. A strange, quiet, fragile moment between the ruins of everything we used to be. "Do you have time to talk?" I asked carefully. She nodded. "Let me just drop this off," she said, lifting a small shopping bag. "I'm staying 3 blocks from here." We walked together in silence. It wasn't awkward. It was loaded. Like every step was a sentence we weren't saying yet. She brought me up to a 3rd-floor apartment above a florist shop. It smelled like roses and dust. There were stacks of books everywhere. Her jacket over a chair. A single coffee mug on the windowsill. "Tea," she offered. Sure. She poured 2 cups without asking how I took it. Still remembered. Always black. We sat at her tiny table by the window. Then she said, "I read your letters." I nodded. "I read all of them." I swallowed. "Thank you for that. They were hard, but honest." I didn't know what else to be I said. After everything. She stared into her tea for a long time, before asking, did you ever think about telling me? Before the party. Every day, I admitted. But I told myself it wasn't my truth to give, that it belonged to Mom and Dad. And now, I think that was cowardice dressed up as loyalty. She didn't say anything. Then she said, I thought I hated you. My chest caved inward. But I don't, she added softly. I hated the silence, the betrayal, the way everything felt like a joke I wasn't in on. I nodded, eyes stinging. I don't know who I am yet, she whispered. Everything I believed was a lie. My birthday, my blood type, even my name feels off. I didn't interrupt. I started therapy, she said. Once a week. It helps. Kind of. I still can't look at Mom without shaking. She wrote you, I said. I know. I haven't replied. That's okay. She looked at me, eyes full of something, between forgiveness and warning. You don't get to tell me what's okay anymore. I lowered my head. You're right. A long pause. Then she asked, do you still see me as your sister? I looked up. I've never stopped. She blinked hard, bit her lip, nodded. We didn't hug. There wasn't some dramatic reunion. No tearful embrace. Just tea going cold and two people learning how to sit in a room together again. Before I left, I said, I'll wait, however long it takes. I'm not rushing anything, but if there's a future where we can laugh again, even once, I'll be here. She walked me to the door. Just before I stepped out, she said, do you still have that dumb photo from when I had ice cream all over my face? I smiled. It's on my fridge. She smiled too. Tiny, barely there, but real. Then she closed the door gently, and for the first time in months, I walked away feeling like I might not be losing her forever. The weeks that followed weren't magical. There was no sudden healing, no family dinners. No, we're back to normal nonsense. But there was movement. Small things, like tectonic plates shifting beneath the surface. A message from Julie on a Sunday morning. Do you still make those terrible pancakes with too much cinnamon? I replied. They've only gotten worse. She sent back a thumbs up emoji. That was it. And it meant the world. The next time we saw each other, it wasn't planned. I dropped by our parents' house, just to pick up some tools from the garage, and she was there, sitting at the kitchen table with Mom. The room was tense, air thick like it hadn't been opened in weeks. My mom's eyes were red, but not from fresh tears. Julie looked up when I walked in. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just nodded. Hey, I said carefully. She returned it with a soft, hey. I glanced at my mom, who looked like she was holding her breath. I didn't know you'd be here, I added. Julie shrugged. Didn't either? Just happened. I nodded. Okay, I'll be quick. But then she said, you don't have to leave. That sentence, 5 words, stopped me in my tracks. I sat down. No one spoke for a while, just the sound of a distant car outside, and the kitchen clock ticking like it had somewhere more important to be. Then Julie looked at my mom. I'm not ready to forgive you, either of you. I know, Mom whispered, but I don't want to erase everything. Not yet. And that's when my dad walked in from the backyard, saw us, and froze like a deer. We all looked at him. He gave a slow, almost comical nod, like someone unsure whether he was interrupting a funeral or a miracle. Julie cracked the smallest smile, and suddenly, for a moment, it wasn't awful. It was just awkward. Human. We sat there for 20 minutes. Didn't say much, but it was enough. Later, as I walked Julie out to her car, she said, I went back to the beach last week. Yeah, I thought about you. That trip when I was 9. The one where I got stung by the jellyfish, and blamed you for daring me to go in the water. I laughed. You chased me with seaweed for hours after that. Because you deserved it. Still do, I said. She looked at me. It's weird, Alex. I know what they did was wrong. But what hurts more, is that for a while, I started questioning everything, including you. Like if you were ever really mine. I wanted to say so many things. That love isn't measured in DNA. That she's more my sister than anyone else could ever be. But all I said was, you've always been mine. She didn't reply. But she hugged me. Not tight, not long, but real. That night, I wrote another letter. Not to send, just to release. You are not your blood. You are not a mistake. You are not a secret. You are my sister. Even in the silence. Even in the distance. Even if you never come back all the way. I tucked it into the notebook where I'd kept all the others. And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I made pancakes. Too much cinnamon. Burnt edges. I took a photo. Sent it to her with the caption, still terrible. Still waiting. She replied 10 minutes later. Save me too. She came over the next morning. No warning. Just rang the doorbell at 9:42 a.m. With a tote bag over her shoulder, and the same tired sneakers she used to wear to high school. I opened the door, holding a spatula in one hand and my breath in the other. You made coffee? She asked. I stepped aside. I made everything. The kitchen smelled like burnt batter and overconfidence. She laughed when she walked in. Not loud, not full, but genuine. I poured her a mug. She grabbed a pancake off the stack with her fingers before even sitting down. Still dry, she said, chewing. Still ungrateful. She grinned, and for a second, she was 12 again, sitting cross-legged on the couch, arguing over whether or not jelly beans counted as dinner. We sat at the table, same one we'd shared 1,000 times. She looked around. Everything looked smaller, or we got bigger. She nodded, eyes drifting toward the old photo still stuck to my fridge with the smiley magnet. Us, on that vacation. Her with the ice cream, me with the bad haircut. Time had moved, but some things hadn't. Do you think Mom and Dad lied because they were ashamed? She asked quietly. I took a breath. No, I think they lied because they were afraid. Of losing you, of losing what they built. And that fear grew legs. She sipped her coffee. Fear's a bitch. I didn't disagree. But so is silence, she added. It grows like mold. I nodded. I know. We finished breakfast in near silence. Comfortable this time. Full of the things we didn't need to explain. As she rinsed her plate, she said, I met someone who might be my biological mother. I looked up. What? She reached out through an old registry I'd forgotten I signed up for. Years ago, I never thought anyone would actually match. I stood still, waiting. She lives 3 hours away. Her name is Marianne. She sent me a photo. Do you look like her? Julie smiled faintly. Same nose, same eyes. She asked if I'd like to meet. And, I don't know yet, but I wanted you to be the first person I told. That sentence hit me like a wave. I nodded slowly. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, no matter what. She blinked quickly, like she wasn't expecting to cry. But she didn't hide it. She just let the tears fall while drying her hands with a towel. I lost everything I thought I knew, she whispered, but somehow I still have you. Always, I said. She hugged me again, longer this time. No awkwardness, just warmth. When she left, I watched her walk down the steps, sunlight hitting her face in a way that made her look like she belonged to the world again. Not just to pain, not just to questions, but to herself. I don't know what will happen with Marianne. I don't know if Julie will find answers, or more heartbreak, or both. But I do know this. We are rebuilding. Not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly, and maybe that's the only way it ever should be been. I'm still her brother. She's still my sister. Not because of genetics, but because of every morning after, every late night conversation, every letter, every tear, every pancake, dry as hell, served with too much cinnamon and not enough apology. She came back. And even if parts of her story are still missing, we're writing the rest, together, at our pace, in our own words. And maybe that's what family really is. Even after everything, I still don't know if she'll ever fully forgive us. But for now, she's here. And that's more than I ever thought I'd get. Follow me for more stories.